It was the final night of December when the first true moment of realization came to Irene. The living room was filled with soft yellow lights strewn across the walls, giving off a warm and festive glow. Outside, snow glinted beneath street lamps, each flake reflecting the promise of a new beginning. And yet, the anticipation that should have brought her joy felt inexplicably muted in her chest. She had spent weeks preparing for this night, cooking her husband's favorite dishes, arranging the tablecloth and napkins to perfection, and selecting the music playlist with him in mind. Every detail of their shared home was meticulously arranged to celebrate the dawning of a new year, a year that she secretly hoped would rekindle the affection that once seemed infinite. They had been married for a decade, a stretch of time that felt both fleeting and interminable. Pavel's laughter had once been her guiding star. She would remember how, in those early years, he could lift her spirits with a single joke or a gentle embrace. Over time, the ease between them had waned, replaced by polite routines and minimal glances. There had been arguments, of course, bouts of disagreement over the smallest issues like which brand of coffee to buy or how to spend their weekends. But somehow, the deeper issues had never quite been spoken aloud. She had hoped that tonight, amid the popping champagne corks and the swirl of conversation, there might be a gentle moment when his eyes locked with hers, and they'd remember why they chose to share their lives in the first place. Guests arrived in lively spirits. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues filled the space with loud greetings and laughter, setting jackets on the spare bed and flocking to the dining table. Irene flitted between the kitchen and the living room, offering canapes and cocktails, conscious of her posture and her expression, performing an air of contentment. She was both host and spectator, observing the gatherings of small talk and boisterous jokes. Through it all, she wondered if Pavel noticed the new blouse she wore. Simple, sky blue, and chosen specifically because he once mentioned he loved that color on her. However, when he entered, his gaze swept the room before settling on her for the briefest moment, just enough to offer a polite smile. Pavel's sister arrived shortly after. Svetlana's entrance was the true pivot. She had always been the spirited younger sibling, animated by her own sense of flamboyance and unstoppable confidence. She walked in wearing a sleek black dress and a bright grin, carrying a bottle of expensive wine that she waved around as though it were a trophy. The first exchange of the evening arrived in the form of an embrace. Svetlana's arms draped around Irene with an almost dramatic warmth. They had never been close, although both tried to maintain a semblance of cordial affection. Perhaps it was Irene's lingering unease around the sister, or the knowledge that somewhere behind that bright smile there dwelled a subtle thread of competition. Whatever it was, Irene found herself tensing the moment she saw Svetlana step through the doorway. The dinner progressed with the usual holiday clamor. The group formed pockets of conversation, some discussing the year's achievements, others airing regrets and aspirations for the year to come. Irene's eyes continually flickered toward Pavel, hoping for a gentle glance. But he appeared occupied entertaining everyone else with jokes and anecdotes. She stifled the lonely knot in her throat, telling herself that the big moment was yet to come. Pavel had a gift for her, or so he had hinted. She knew better than to crave expensive tokens, but she wanted that intangible something, a sign she was still significant and cherished, not just the caretaker of their shared life. As the clock neared midnight, Pavel stood before the crowd in the living room, glass in hand. Everyone followed suit, forming a loose circle around him. He spoke of gratitude, resilience, and hope, praising friends for being supportive, praising Svetlana for her always adventurous spirit. He expressed how proud he was that his sister managed to travel to so many places, living a life he deeply admired. All the while, Irene clutched her champagne flute, forcing a smile, feeling ironically invisible in her own home. Finally, after the countdown from 10 and the explosive cheer when midnight struck, he set his drink down and reached for a box nestled near the television stand. The hush that fell over the group was laced with anticipation. Pavel stepped forward, first offering a small velvet box to Svetlana. Her face brightened in genuine surprise as she opened it, revealing a necklace of brilliant clarity. Gasps of admiration moved through the small crowd. The diamonds catching the glint of the overhead chandelier created a dazzling display of sparkles. Svetlana's eyes glowed with delight, and she enthusiastically thanked her brother for his unimaginable generosity. Irene's chest felt tight. In a single instant, she realized that Svetlana had a diamond necklace in her hands, the sort of glittering piece of jewelry that had never once been offered to her. She tried to remain poised, tried to contain the well of confusion and hurt swirling inside. Then, as if only just remembering, Pavel reached inside a plain paper bag and pulled out a neatly folded garment. He approached Irene and handed her the package. Her breath caught as she unwrapped the tissue to find a blouse. White cotton, unembellished, essentially identical to the ones she had regularly worn to work for years. In any other moment, she might have thanked him politely. But now, it felt like a pointed statement, an unfortunate announcement that to him, she merited only something ordinary. Her cheeks reddened, tears threatening to spring to her eyes. She pressed her lips together, forcing them into a tight smile, mindful of the watching crowd. She muttered something along the lines of, "Thank you. It's lovely." But the words felt like dry leaves scattering in a hollow wind. The cheers and festivities resumed, no one seeming to acknowledge the odd disparity between the gifts. But within Irene, a quiet storm was brewing. Unable to withstand the swell of emotion, Irene stepped away, heading toward the kitchen under the pretext of bringing more dessert. Once there, she set the blouse on the counter as if it were some foreign object. The room beyond the kitchen walls roared with chatter and laughter, everyone already returning to their own business. But Irene felt the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. She closed her eyes, remembering the days when a single red rose from Pavel would mean more than any diamond. Why did he lavish such luxury on his sister while choosing something so profoundly mundane for his wife? It was as though the decade of their marriage had faded into a background he no longer cared to adorn with genuine affection. In the reflection of the microwave door, Irene caught a glimpse of her own tear-streaked face. Anger welled up, an anger she rarely allowed herself to feel. She wanted to storm into the living room and demand an explanation, but a voice inside urged caution. This was New Year's, a celebration among friends. She dreaded the drama, the avalanche of embarrassment that might spill out if she let her emotions loose in front of everyone. So she remained there, fists clenched, cheeks hot, swallowing the rancor that threatened to spill into the open. Svetlana's voice broke the silence behind her. "Irene, are you okay?" Her sister-in-law was leaning against the doorframe, the new diamond necklace radiant beneath the kitchen lights. That sparkle almost mocked Irene, as though proving how overshadowed she was in her own home. "I'm fine," Irene lied. "Just needed a moment." Svetlana's eyes flickered with something akin to sympathy. Pavel can be, well, you know, he's always tried to spoil me ever since we were kids, though I certainly didn't expect this. She fingered the necklace delicately, her tone a mix of pride and a mild attempt at humility. "I'm sure he got you something really thoughtful as well." Irene hesitated, the blouse still visible on the counter. Her response was tight-lipped. "Yes, it's nice." An awkward silence settled. Svetlana cleared her throat, then offered a gentle, "If you ever need to talk," before trailing off. She pivoted and returned to the main gathering, leaving Irene with the pointed sense that pity might be the last thing she wanted from her sister-in-law. Taking a steadying breath, Irene grabbed a bottle of sparkling water and rejoined the crowd. At least, she reasoned, the night was nearly over. The promise of a fresh year felt almost mocking now, but she was determined not to let others see how shaken she was. Hours later, after the guests had trickled out one by one, and the confetti lay scattered around the living room, Irene confronted Pavel. He was removing empty champagne bottles, but she saw his eyes darting uncertainly in her direction. She asked, quietly at first, "Why did you give Svetlana something so lavish? Why this necklace for her?" He fumbled for words, muttering something about how Svetlana had been through a difficult time and how he wanted to give her something special. Irene pressed on, "And I haven't been through anything difficult. I'm your wife, aren't I? Don't I deserve to feel special?" At that, Pavel sighed heavily, his demeanor turning defensive. "Irene, you're my wife, and I love you, but you've never shown much interest in fancy things. You always said you preferred practicality. Why are you making a big deal out of this?" He might as well have struck her. Those words encapsulated exactly how he saw her. The practical wife who would never complain, who would never ask for more than she was given. The realization stung, not because she craved diamonds, but because she yearned for the awareness that he truly saw her and valued her beyond convenience. Irene's voice rose, sharp enough to quake her own heart. "I don't need a diamond necklace to feel special, but I do need you to remember that I matter." Pavel's response was a stubborn glare, and for a moment she imagined the argument escalating, fury sparking between them. Instead, he simply turned away, saying he was too tired for such drama. He retreated upstairs, leaving her amid the littered wine glasses and half-eaten pastries. The quiet living room felt like a battlefield of unvoiced hurts. Irene stood, shell-shocked at the suddenness of his dismissal, wanting to scream or weep, uncertain which to choose. Eventually, she cleaned up in a daze. Each discarded napkin, each empty plate, and every piece of crumpled wrapping paper only magnified the sense that her marriage was as strewn and disordered as the aftermath of this party. She resolved, as she tossed the last champagne cork into the trash, that things could not remain this way. This ordinary blouse had become a symbol of how diminished she felt, how overshadowed by others' needs and her husband's obliviousness. Whatever illusions she had clung to had shattered the moment Svetlana unwrapped those glittering diamonds. Still, in the deep corners of her mind, she felt fear. Despite the anger, she feared confrontation and the possibility that all she had worked to build might crumble if she pushed too hard. Yet a quiet determination took hold. She refused to slip back into meek acceptance. Maybe the new year could hold something different after all. It would take courage to insist on the respect and affirmation that she deserved. But for once in her life, she felt a steely resolve. She would not be invisible anymore.